Hello, everybody. I'm Sayadi. We're doing these talks for a while now, and today we're going to do a third one in a series of talks about fisheries and the 1752 treaties and the issues that been happening in indigenous communities, in the Mi'kmaq communities, and in eastern Canada or northeastern part of Turtle Island. There's been a lot of conflicts, issues at hand, and this is the third time we're talking about this in the past couple of weeks. And again, I just wanted to say this, that I decided that to do these talks because I know there's a huge gap on the internet, online, occupied by people of color, and doing talks that are uncensored and not filtered, and people being able to come and say what they want about the issues that are important to me, and I think is important to a lot of people out there, without the burden of general media. So I was doing these things on live on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, but then it stays on my channel on YouTube. So these are very important issues. So if you're coming online or if you're listening later, please share them and talk to others. Without further ado, I'm gonna bring my friend Amanda Francis, who's been helping me in this particular series of conversations. Hello, Amanda.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
How's everything? What's going on?
It's
could
something
you give
else.
us a little bit of recap of past week or 10 days?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can't continue without mentioning the CNN breakdown of the votes. I mean, I know we're in Canada and it's the United States, and how we were just grouped in as something else. You know, Native American was not representative. I know there's been lots of memes the last few days, and that speaks to Native people in general. Just been through so much that we always have to find the humor somewhere in it just to get through. So yeah, it's been something else this week. Anyway,
I've been really enjoying seeing the comments by some of my indigenous artists online, and how they've been making fun of this issue of the other, but
yeah, something else.
Amanda, what's going on in the community since last time we talked about the fishery issue and the 1752 treaty and all the conflicts?
So
just give us a recap of it.
We decided to, I did anyway, spoke to Kjipuktuk, both of us did, about like, what does she know about the treaties? What does she, and really, she doesn't know a lot. So,
and Kjipuktuk, we're talking about your daughter,
that's
who's
my
14.
daughter. Yes, she's 14. And I asked her, like, she takes a Mi'kmaq class, and so we delved a little deeper into that, and I asked her, like, have they mentioned anything about, you know, what's going on in Nova Scotia or anything like that? And it turns out that her Mi'kmaq class, it's just monitored by a non-native person, and during the time of her class, she just goes online and they just teach random words. And so I'm kind of like shocked and very disappointed in what's going on there. And it speaks to what we talked about last week about how much there needs to be more education. So I feel like there needs to be a Native person in that class, a Native person who can talk about the treaties. And if they're teaching language, well, Danny and I had a big talk about this too. And
Danny, your husband.
Yes. And so we were talking. He's my husband. He was also very actively involved in the Burn Church crisis.
Yes.
Just to clarify that, like, his boat was sunk. He was, you know, battered and pepper sprayed, and anyway, all that stuff. So just
And
to give a little
I was
background on
there,
that.
and when we're talking about Burn Church, we're talking about the last time this issue happened, and the Mi'kmaq were on the water trying to exercise their right to fish, and they were attacked by some of the commercial fishing and the DFO.
So yeah, so him and I were talking about language, like the language and history. And if you look at, and I am by no means like a fluent speaker, but I know different words and I know different things. I also, know about language in general. So a lot of our words are, if you look at them, the base of it comes from when we had contact with the French and the Acadians. So like Wenju Soon is an apple. Well, soon is a cranberry. So Wenju Soon is a French cranberry. An apple is a French cranberry. So that's just one example. There's all different kinds. And it speaks again to the history and how the history needs to be taught in conjunction with the language as well. Like the 1755 expulsion and the 1752 treaty, how, there was probably a long time that led up to that. It didn't just start there, that there was a relationship, and we were neighbors, we were friends, we were family, and we protected each other, we helped each other. It's even, if you want proof, it's in the language. There are words, there are things like that. So we talked about that, and how us as parents, we need to definitely do the education at home more with Kjipuktuk. She has an idea of things, but like really more specific. So we did that. The other thing was, and it's interesting, it was today, my Uncle Brian, he posted some pictures of my dada, my grandfather, from 1976, presenting the Queen of England with a copy of the 1752 treaties to remind the crown of their responsibilities.
And I'm glad you've been putting that picture up.
They were I reposted
online. Yes.
Yeah, I reposted them on Instagram, and they'll be there for 24 hours in my stories. And that's a big part of, like, those pictures were up at my grandmother's house all the time. So, and there was always somebody, if you wanted to know what was going on in the picture, there was always somebody there to tell you, that knew. So, I mean, I felt very fortunate that I had that kind of knowledge of all of that, and right from my family. So I feel like as a parent that we're going to have to take some, reins and teach our daughter a little bit more, keep her more aware of what's going on.
I really like the way you related this issue to, the proof is in the language.
There's
Kjipuktuk has been learning Mi'kmaq in school, and I really like how you highlighted that. We don't need to go very far to know about this history. It's right in the language.
And it's like Sundance. Everything's simple. If you're, you know what I mean? You could make it seem really complicated, but really it's not. It's very just basics. Like, it's in the language. The proof is there. We're friends. We're allies. Let's move on.
Amanda, tell us about the picture behind you very quickly.
Oh, that picture right there?
Yes.
That's Danny's dad. He served in the Second World War. Solomon Francis. He was in the North Shore Regiment. And up until Remembrance Day, Danny will be posting pictures of his dad on Facebook, a different picture every day, just to honor him. And Danny also served as well for 20 years in the Canadian Armed Forces.
Yes.
He was a combat engineer, paratrooper.
My thank you, and I'm sure many others, to Danny and his father for his service. If you're just joining us, please share or tell others that we're having this discussion. And I'm just going to take it from where Amanda left it with the education and bring in our guest. And that's Alexa Metallic. Hello, Alexa.
Hi.
How are
Hi,
you?
Alexa.
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you very much for being with us. I'm just going to give a quick introduction about Alexa Metallic is from Listuguj Mi'kmaq First Nation and currently lives in Kjipuktuk. She holds her Bachelor of Arts from St. Thomas University with a double major in communications and public policy and a double minor in political science and gender studies. During her time as a student at St. Thomas, Alexa sat as the Indigenous Student Representative, the chair of the Indigenous Reconciliation Committee, and held a seat on the Senate Committee for Reconciliation. Additionally, she helped with the implementation of the Indigenous Voices column within university's newspaper, which she also wrote for. Alexa currently works as the Community Engagement and Outreach Liaison for Digital Mi'kmaq, which I would like to hear about. A grassroots organization aimed towards creating foundational change for a new generation through the interplay of science, culture, education, and digital skills. Alexa possesses an honest desire to create meaningful change for Indigenous peoples and views education as fundamental in doing so. Well, thank you for sharing your time with us, Alexa.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
If please tell us a little bit more about yourself, and let's start right there with the education.
All right. Well, I'm 24. I'm from Listuguj. I recently moved to Halifax about 4 months ago to work at Digital Mi'kmaq, the nonprofit organization. Yeah. Did you want me to get into like the work that we do there a little bit, or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
that Digital Mi'kmaq is yeah, I really like to know about that.
It's pretty cool. It was started in 2018. It's very new. They offer, initially when they started, I believe they started off offering education in STEAM, so science, tech, engineering, arts, and math. They're trying to move away a little bit from, they're still doing that, but they're expanding a lot of their programming as well. So they're running a community garden project that addresses food security in the Atlantic provinces. We're starting off small, just working with a few right now, but hopefully we're going to be able to hit more. They launched a COVID response initiative. So we have some 3D printers in our office, and we make face shields. We have KN95 masks. We have gloves. We recently gave out a number of laptops to students across the Atlantic provinces. We do so much. It's like I've been there for 4 months and I'm still really learning what we do. So my role there is really helping them expand into the other Atlantic provinces, because they initially started just in Nova Scotia. And so I basically drive all over and talk to people about what we do and hope that they are interested in accessing our programs and our curriculum. And it's all free.
That's great.
Yeah.
And is centered in Halifax?
Yeah, our main office is in Halifax.
In Halifax. And just for people to know, tell us where is Listuguj? Listuguj
is in Gaspé-Gawagi, which is the 7th district of Mi'kmaq territory. It's in Quebec. I want to say, I'm really bad at geography. I want to say northern Quebec. It's across the bridge from Hamilton.
It's north of New Brunswick and northeast of Quebec.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. So that's where it is.
Alexa, we're, this is the third time we're talking about this issue in Eastern Turtle Island and what's happening. And everybody is having a different reaction to it, coming to it from a different perspective. We talked to young men from the community. We talked to young mothers from community. We talk to active people active on the ground in middle of it. For you as a young person, right from the community, right in middle of it, what is your perspective on this whole thing? What do you think happened and what is going on?
I think what's happening is just a really good reason for people to expose their racist attitudes towards Indigenous peoples. It's a cop-out. It's not a matter of conservation. If you think about Maine, close by, they don't have a lobster fishing season. They fish year-round, and there's never been an issue with conservation with them. It's made me very angry. It's also made me feel very hopeful and empowered, I guess, seeing relatives from all over Turtle Island gather and stand in solidarity with us. It's really emphasized the need for treaty education. In my old position before I moved here, I worked at an organization based out of Fredericton. It's called the Joint Economic Development Initiative, and I ran a program. It was called the Indigenous Reconciliation Awareness Module, and I'm just saying that because I think it's still active right now. And I think that I'll just start off with what I did. So, as the coordinator of that, I basically went into organizations and different government bodies. I actually did a presentation with the DFO office in Moncton. And what I would do is we would do the blanket exercise for half the day. And then the next day we would spend diving into the history we just focused on the Atlantic provinces. So we started off with the history. We talked about statistics and demographics. We dove into contemporary issues, and then we also we talked a little bit about solutions. I tried to help them develop better. What's the word? I don't want to say policies, but I'll say policies in their interactions and in their retention and bringing in Indigenous people to work with and work alongside. And in that job alone, like they don't know. No one knows anything. And I think that's been very strategic on Canada's end. The only reason that Canada doesn't feel the responsibility to enforce these treaties is because its citizens don't know anything about them. The citizens are the real governing power, and if they don't know anything, they're not going to do anything about it. And so yeah.
But yes, Amanda, please.
I just have a question. If you would, because it's sort of like sensitivity training, basically, is sort of what you were doing. Would you explain a little bit of the blanket exercise, just a little bit?
Yeah. So the blanket exercise, there's different learners in life, right? So this one is kind of, I want to say, directed more towards visual learners. And so how it starts off is for me, you're supposed to always have an elder present. We start off with an opening prayer, just talk a little bit about what the exercise is, opening ceremony, and then the exercise itself. There's different ones modified to different territories depending on like where you're delivering the exercise. So I would always be delivering it in New Brunswick, and so we would visually lay out blankets on the floor. We'd hand out scrolls to all participants, and what a scroll is basically like a piece of paper that reads like a script, and then you'd have two moderators. So I would be one, and like a colleague would be one with me, and one would be playing the main moderator, and then the other would be playing the European, and I would have my script, they would have theirs, and then the participants would also be actively participating in that way. And so they just walk around, we call upon, it's basically a history lesson, a visual history lesson of the territory that you're on. And the blankets represent the territory. There's cards that are given out different colors for different reasons. So I think like red is for missing and murdered Indigenous women. So if I gave someone a red card and I called upon all the red to leave, they'd have to sit down, and they'd see visually over time, how much land has been taken from us, how many women have been missing or murdered, it's a visual history lesson. It's the best way I can describe it.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, it's
That's
usually
wonderful.
a good primer into like going deeper into the things that we talked about in the IRAM.
Cool.
Alexa, my daughter is a little bit younger than you, and Amanda's daughter is younger than her. And I always have said this, and I believe this, that, you know, my generation, and I should say this, you know, when we're talking about discrimination and facing racism, my experience as a brown person coming from another country and settled in Canada, it's nothing near the discrimination you and Amanda are facing or have been facing. Nothing near to it, nothing close to it. But as someone who's had some of those experiences, I always have said that, you know, the next generation, they will not be apologetic. I think, you know, my generation has been very apologetic about some of the stuff, some of the things that I think, you know, it was my right, and there was discrimination, and try to work with the system and with the rest of it. And I see this with my daughter, and I see this now with a lot of young people. You just said it, you know, you're angry about it. You're not being apologetic about it. You're coming right up and saying it. And a lot of times when people say in this situation, they say they're angry, they get labeled. How do you feel about that? When you say you're angry, are you okay with it? That they, you know, that, how do you face that that call? And, you know, here's oh, she's just angry. You know, nothing happened here really. We can work this out.
I've tried to be very mindful of, and I wish like, as you know, as people of color, we didn't have to be mindful of the way that we deliver. We shouldn't have to censor ourselves. We shouldn't have to censor like the pain that we're feeling, the trauma that we're experiencing, the injustices that we're facing. We shouldn't have to censor that. But I've always, I think it was because of my old job, I really, I realized really fast that people don't listen to you if you're delivering a message in a tone that's not appeasing to them. So that's it's super frustrating, but I'm at the point now where I'm kind of like, I'm unapologetically angry at this point. I don't really consider the white gaze that much anymore. I don't care about how they consider how I'm delivering I don't care what they think about my delivery. I'm pissed. Like,
yeah.
So.
And understandably so.
Yeah, and I think about the older people in my life back home, and just elders and the older generations. Like you said, you know, that apologeticness, it was learned. You know, you were conditioned to feel that way. People were conditioned to operate from a place of fear, and it's not fair. And I think that the younger generations see that. Like, I'm so grateful that I'm so grateful for the people in my life, because I don't know. I feel like I can be openly angry because I didn't get the chance to be that. So that's how I'm thinking about it these days.
And do you think that you're being more comfortable with the expression of how you feel about all of this because there's greater support amongst people in Turtle Island?
I would say that's part of it. I would say a really big part of it, though, is my circle, like who I surround myself with. They're the same way, like it's just kind of, we're mad and we want people to do better, and we don't feel bad about it. But yeah, I think that allyship is a really, really important component as well. But yeah.
Let's talk about that. Amanda was educating us about the networks that she's in, the knitting circle.
Mm-hmm.
And they are very active, and they're getting the message out. We the first time we talked about that knitting circle that Amanda's part of, we put the video on YouTube, and it just like so many people were on it talking about it and getting it out, people making comments. So what are the circles that young Mi'kmaq in your community?
Well, for me, I guess there's like a few. I would say at this point, like when I've been down in Digby or in Onamagi, because DFO's been seizing their gear as well. You meet a lot of people. You're all connecting over this collective issue we're all facing. This isn't just a threat to the rights of members of Sibeghinagady. This is a threat to the rights of all Onlu everywhere. And so the people at the front lines, I would say that is a circle. We all are doing a really great job at amplifying each other's voices. I myself am a beader. I do beadwork, and so I think that there's a really great circle amongst artists. Her name's Jeanette Henry. She's from my community. She generously donated. At the time, I was doing some fundraising when I wasn't able to be down there because of work and stuff, and she reached out and donated a beautiful piece of quill work, and we did a raffle on that. And I've been seeing that echoed everywhere. There's beaters from across, there's artists from across Turtle Island who have been generously donating their beautiful work and raising funds for to help us out here. I would say in terms of allies, I have this great friend. His name is Brody Young. He doesn't like what I mentioned him. He's very humble, but his name is Brody Young, and we helped him make the All Eyes on Mi'kma'ki video that's on YouTube. I would check it out if you haven't, people watching. I don't know. I think everybody has a gift, and I think that everyone has a gift to offer to what's going on right now. And it's just beautiful seeing everyone tap into their gifts to do what they can.
And do you see a different future because of this alliance that you see happening? Do you see a different outcome that we have seen before?
I hope so. I want to say yes, but I don't like this. This was already legally affirmed 21 years ago. Why are we fighting this again? We had this issue in my community. This happened in Escanobadage. This isn't like a new, it's just frustrating. I don't know, because we're also watching, besides the injunction that was just recently put into play, we're also watching Canada allow Indigenous people to be terrorized. Like, I think this is terrorism. If we look at everything that's happened, if we look at the boats that have been burned, the people that were trapped in the port, if we look at the men that have been attacking our women, if we look at all the gear that's been seized and destroyed, if we look at the flares being launched, like, if you look at, because I've been looking into this a little, if you look at section 83.01, I think, of the Canadian Criminal Code, and you look at what defines terrorism, that hits everything. And we're just idly watching, well, we're not, but Canada is idly watching Indigenous peoples across Canada get terrorized, and there's nothing done about it. So I don't know that. I don't know. I want to say yes, but just I'm like kind of pessimistic about it at this point.
Yeah. Amanda, I really like the way Alexa broke it down to say, and we talked about this in the other one, that yes, this is a terrorist act. When you look at the elements of it, it has all of it. It's organized, it's done by people who have resources, it's done to intimidate people, it's putting people's lives in danger.
And the people who are in authority there, like who could have done something, RCMP, DFO, they did nothing. they just watched. And then as soon as there was a sign that our people might have a few extra traps in the water, they were on the water ready to take those traps out.
Mhm.
Like, but they weren't there when, all those huge boats were coming in. So it's definitely terrorism, and we have no protection. Like, the
No.
people who are out there are not, that when, we are the first people of this country. We should be protected. And just by, their own Indian Act and their own this and that, we are legally protected by them first, So they are breaking their own laws by not protecting us out there.
And this has been echoed by the Minister of Indigenous Services Canada. The name keeps always changing, but Mark Miller, Jagmeet Singh, Senator Murray Sinclair, they're all lawyers. They wouldn't just say that they wouldn't say the word terrorism unless, do you know what I mean? And so there needs to be a formal investigation done. If that happens, then I might be hopeful that things will get better. But if not, it's just an indication of how little Canada values Indigenous lives.
I see that there could be roads in personal issues and things like that's what I see through the knitting community. There are way more roads to more allies. And then it's just okay, well, what do we do from here? How can those allies help us in a positive way to get these things, looked into? Like all those fishermen who were doing the terrorism things towards our people. How can our, say, non-native allies help us? Allies that we're making through this. And I think that's the next step.
I agree. I think one of the biggest ways that for me, that I can think of in terms of allyship, a call to action that I might have is because how I mentioned earlier about Canada doesn't feel the need to uphold these treaties because its citizens don't know anything about it. That's been intentional. So, it's not fair that you weren't taught the true history of Canada, but you have a responsibility to learn. You are also a treaty person. You benefit from these treaties as well. You would know that if you did some research. So I guess a call to action on my end for allies would be to familiarize yourself with whose land you're on and familiarize yourself with the responsibilities that come with being on that land.
Do you think that's your responsibility to teach them?
I did for a while, to a degree. I think so, but I see a lot of exploitation of Indigenous people and their knowledge. Often people just want a cookie cutter version of, history, and they want it for free, and they want it less than a day. And
being able to check the boxes.
Exactly. I'm not okay with those terms. You remember things better when you do it yourself. So.
What do you think about that, Amanda? I mean, that's a very big issue right now in Canada and US. Is this on you, or is it on them to learn about where their privilege is coming from?
It's definitely like what Alexa says. I think that things like this, like what we're doing now, it's opening doors, and that's good. But as far as doing the work, no, it should be on them. And I think that was also spoken of in the Black Lives Matter movement as well. It's not it's not our place to do that. But we need to, I think it's definitely the government needs to implement the teaching of treaties, of so much more things need to be put into the curriculum across the board, not just for our schools, for non-native schools. We talked about that last week, and I think that's a way to help in the future, but things need to be done now. And I think Tammy touched on that at least last week as well. Things need to be done now. The government needs to stop with the whitewashing. They need to look into it too. They need to know what they're doing. And they don't. They have no idea.
I just don't think it's. Yeah, I agree 100%. I just don't think it's fair for as Mi'kmaq people, as Indigenous people, as people of color, as anyone that's facing oppression in any way, I don't think it's fair for us right now in this moment to have to suffer the emotional consequences and emotional trauma of racism, and then, oh, but I'll teach you, like, oh, but I'll make you feel better and
yeah,
help
let's make you
you.
feel better.
I don't.
Yeah.
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 Alexa, I was talking to an artist from Halifax, Tyler Simmons. He's from the Black community of Halifax. And we were both talking about this issue of, when we hear people say, oh, we're all on the same boat. And that we're in this together, and a lot of times when that's said, my place or Tyler's place as a person of color, or for him as a Black person, his place is taken as somebody else is doing the talking, and usually that person is white, and like Amanda said, a lot of whitewashing the issues. How do you feel about that when in the middle of all of this, and especially we saw this in the past 10 months in the Black Lives Matter movement and the pandemic? We hear this a lot, that we're all in this together. How do you feel about that when you hear that, when you're facing straight up racism and discrimination?
We're all in this together. From who? Who's saying?
Well, when it comes from a white community, that yes, we understand we're in this together.
We're not in this together. We are not in this together. We are not even on the same playing field right now. You are benefiting from what's happening out here in Mi'kma'ki right now. You are benefiting from the Canadian government not upholding our treaties. That we're not in this together. I don't know if I can elaborate on that anymore then.
No, I think it's very clear, and that's how I felt, and that's how Tyler felt. No, we're not in this together. What do you think about that, Amanda? When a lot of times the microphone and the place is taken, and somebody else talks for you.
It's that thing. There's no to get. It's like, okay, it's like my daughter in sports, say, for example. For her to advance in sports, she doesn't have to just be the same level as everybody else. She has to excel to advance. Whereas a non-native person might be like, maybe, and they'll still advance.
Yeah.
But she has to go above and beyond because she's a native person. And at 6 years old, she learned that. She didn't learn it because we did, though, as parents. When she was cut from a gymnastics program, a competitive gymnastics program. She was not the best, but she wasn't the worst. She was the middle of the road. And there was another girl who they wanted to bring in, and she was cut. And she was 6,
I remember.
And it was like, I was devastated. And after, she wanted to go back, and I was like, there's no way we're going to give them our money for her to do a lower level of gymnastics, for whatever. There was no way.
Yeah.
So it's like, we have to in order for us to excel, we have to go that much further.
Yeah.
It's like a comparison for somebody who might not understand would be women in hockey. They have to go above and beyond a certain level just to, get to a competitive level. They have to work 10 times as hard. So in order for us to get our voices heard, for us to get, to get ahead, to do this, to do that, the other thing, that's what it is. It's this much more struggle that people of privilege, a white privilege, they don't have to do all those extra steps to get to where, if you want to excel. It's a different playing field altogether that they cannot understand. living on the reserve. I didn't grow up on the reserve, but when I was 26 or something, I moved to the reserve. Living on the reserve is another thing that you cannot explain to anybody. Nobody can understand that. The politics, the life,
Yeah.
all the different things. And it's like you're dealing with so many people who have gone through so much generational trauma. And so you're living with all the residual effects of all of that all the time, on top of
All the
everything
time.
else.
All the
And then
time.
when you
Yeah.
go into the community, you're experiencing all these other things again. So I'm just in our lifestyle, Shaheen, being a sun dancer, we have to give a lot of this away to the
Yeah.
creator, to the good spirits. I know I have some really strong, powerful, good spirits over on the other side with, my me dada and my mimi dada, who both fought for rights, everything like that, as far as, these issues go. And I know that they're like, making my uncle, who has a book coming out soon, I'm not sure when, I'll plug it sometime along the road when I know the details.
Absolutely.
Brian Francis.
Right.
I know they're supporting him too. And so that helps me to not go to a place of, violence and anger. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I have to rely on them, the ancestors, for help all the time,
All the time.
to help my family to, be healthy, happy, all those kind of things, for my daughter to, excel and to have a good life. And, it's, again, for my daughter, but not just my daughter, but her children and their children and their children. What we do now will affect all of them. And so we do the work, whatever it is that we have to do.
Alexa, what Amanda's saying, about you always have to work harder and do something extra to be anywhere, to be seen. I experienced that all my life in Canada, especially in in the world of theater and doing theater, and where what I had to do to be just anywhere in the scene. How do you feel about that? What do you think about that? Why is it? Why?
Racism.
Yeah.
That's the obvious answer. But
I mean, yeah, if it's that simple, I guess.
I think the labels that are placed on us. I think growing up in community. I think a lot about. There's so many factors. I can speak only from my own experience, but I'm very. I hold privilege in that I am oppressed. I'm a woman. I'm Indigenous. I am oppressed in ways, but I also hold privilege in that my appearance is kind of ambiguous. People don't really know what to take me as. Both of my parents, they went to post-secondary, but something that I've realized in school and outside of school is as I can only speak on my experience. As Indigenous people growing up in community, you often don't have the same social capital as white people not growing up on reserve, where, you know what I mean? So you don't know, even in the way you talk, you don't know the language that is seen as better than the use of words out in the public, outside of the community. I mean, you don't know who to talk to about. Your networks aren't the same. The language isn't the same. Your thought process is growing up in community and then living outside. I've seen so much how it differs. How I was brought up differs from Western thought, and I think in my mind now, this is for me. I think that's beautiful, and I'm really grateful for that. But it's seen as something negative outside of community. To other people, like to non-Indigenous people. And so there's so many factors on why, we have to work twice as hard to be taken seriously.
all of those things put together is the privilege that people don't see that they have. And when they're called on it, and it's called racism, they say, well, I'm not racist. Yes, but being blind to your privilege and the way that is affecting me, that's racism. And they don't see that. And
something as simple as turning on the TV. How many times have you seen yourself represented on TV in a positive light? You know, something as simple as that. People don't realize those tiny microaggressions and how they affect us. It's like you have to spell it out for them. It's not.
Alexa, thank you very much for being with us and sharing all of these talks uncensored and just saying that. I really appreciate it. I understand. These are difficult conversations. These are difficult things to come out and say. And I just want to say thank you. And if there's anything else you'd like to share, because this will stay online, and if there's something else you'd like to say.
No, I just want to echo my statement from earlier about educating yourself and how necessary it is to do that. As a treaty person, you have a responsibility to do better, to uphold your end of the agreement that your ancestors made. And I want to say thank you to everybody that's been on the front lines. Thank you to everybody that's been using their gifts to shed light to this, to what's happening here in Mi'kma'ki, to uplift Mi'kmaq voices. Lots of gratitude for everybody doing the work, and thank you for having me.
Of course. Amanda, do you have anything you want to say, Alexa, before she goes?
Very it's hopeful to see prosperous young woman as yourself, for my daughter to have someone like you to look up to aspire to be, and things like that. That's important. And
thank you.
It was wonderful just to hear you speak. I could listen to you speak all night.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get tired of it eventually.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Keep up the good work, Alexa. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
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 Wow. I really like the way you wrapped it up with Alexa. These are the people that we need to look up to.
For our daughters to see her on there and have something to aspire to. And she's very confident and proud in herself. I like how she pointed out the things she looked in herself, her privilege. You know what I mean? And it just that was really cool. And I'm gonna make sure that Gikusan is at hockey, so I'm gonna make sure that she watches this back, so she gets to see this, and again, that'll help further her education on what's going on and treaties and everything like that as well.
Yeah. And when we're talking about Kjipuktuk, we're talking about the very accomplished, very well-rounded 14-year-old. We're not talking about we're talking about, and even that, you're saying that how important it is for even her, who's had great parents, great education, great family around her, a lot of support, and she's a very hardworking person. Like, she really works hard for everything she has accomplished, and she continues to. Even for her, how important it is for her to see a young woman in front of her, that she can say, okay, look, that's where I want to be. That's what I want to follow. That's I need to see this to re-energize and keep going, because it's tough. It's tough out there. It's really hard. Yeah.
And that's why I think, doing this too it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if we do it again, then more people will join us. It's like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the brook leading into the river, leading into the
Yes.
ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It's just might be a small little trail of water, but the further we go along, then hopefully it will open up to more understanding and
Mm-hmm.
more, even if 2 or 3 more people go and look at, okay, what is 1752 treaty? What
Mm-hmm.
is all this? Or look into, the relationship between Acadians and Micmac people, then even if just a few people do it, then it's worth it. Like
And it spreads.
yeah, it spreads.
Yes. And that's what we're
Yes,
trying to
yes.
do here. As little as audience there might be at one time, but is the conversations are out there, and I encourage everybody. These are, like Alexa said, there's nothing more important than this. If we want to live together in peace, we need to understand our responsibilities. We need to understand our privilege and our responsibilities. So please talk about it. Please share this. I would usually say goodbye to the guest and then say something else, but I think we can just close it together, Amanda.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Please spread the word. I'm gonna leave this on my YouTube channel.
Shout out to the knitters. Thank you
Yes,
for your
of
support.
course. I'm really happy you brought that. You put that talk forward and brought the network into the conversation. Thank you, and thanks to them to talking more about it and getting it out. Because, like you said, that's what we need. We need these networks. We need one-to-one education, one-to-one conversation. Thanks very much, everybody.
See you.